What's something obvious for everyone, but you only just realized? An old archaeologist moved in next door when I was about 6, and he asked me to go look on his driveway to help find fossils that he might dropped while moving in. I found two that I still have to this very day. He told me to keep them. I was an adult before I realized he placed them there for me to find. He was a very nice old professor. Not mention how cool I became in the eyes of my friends for owning fossils. My grandmother gave me a 1880s penny when I was about 7. She told me she found it in her chimney and I might want it. I started collecting coins, not seriously, just the fun. Royal Mint circulated ones and some commemorative coins since proper old coins are really expensive. She left me her coin collection when she died. Hundreds of pre-decimal coins. She never found it in her chimney but made little me very happy. This was a long time ago, but the first time I got my eyes checked I was in first or second grade or something. The optometrist told my mom I'm almost completely blind in one eye. She looks at me and asks why I wouldn't say anything. I said I thought everyone only had one working eye. That's ridiculous to ask a kid, though. When I got glasses at around 13, my parents didn't ask me why I never said I was nearsighted. I just thought my eyesight was normal. Like, it would only make sense if people were walking around saying things like, "Look, that tree has exactly 200 leaves on it." Then, people might realize their eyesight isn't normal. That's why we have tests for these things. I didn't know my mom had a name until in first grade the teacher asked us what our mother's name was. Everyone answered but me. I never realized my mom had a name. I questioned my entire existence. I went to her straight after school. She was cooking in the kitchen. I asked her, "Mama, what's your name?" She smiled, stopped cooking, and came down to my height and told me her name. It was a sweet memory, but man, I felt shame that I didn't know that sooner. Man, this reminds me of back in kindergarten when my teacher asked me what my last name was. I was on the brink of tears because I didn't even know I was supposed to have more than one. So I'm not a native speaker, which might make this somewhat excusable, but for the longest time I thought sitcoms were named that because the main characters spend most of their time sitting in a living room, in a bar, etc. Even most native speakers don't realize that it's a combination of situational comedy. I used to think it meant sit-down comedy because the laughing in the background came from people sitting in the audience enjoying the comedy, as opposed to stand-up comedy where the audience stands through the whole set. A few years back, I realized that the Christmas song, "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus," wasn't actually about the mother being unfaithful and putting out for Saint Nick, but it was just the dad dressed as Santa. For almost my entire life, I thought the mom just got around. I was 26 when I realized otherwise. OMG, I'm 1 week from turning 39 and I'm finding this out now. For the longest time, I always thought Prima Donna was Pre-Madonna. You're not alone. I only found out one day when I was watching a movie and that phrase was said and I had subtitles turned on. Edit. For those asking which movie, Groundhog Day. I recently discovered that honey isn't spicy. My husband was buying a bottle of hot honey, and I made some comment about the ridiculous marketing since all honey is already spicy. Turns out I'm just allergic. I remember someone on Reddit saying that in their 20s, they made a comment to a friend about not liking strawberries because of the spicy tingle flavor afterwards. Was then shocked when everyone has no idea what they were talking about. Then learned that they were allergic to strawberries. It's actually crazy how many people have a random mild allergy that just causes something small like that with no real harm, and it just flies under the radar until they're 37 and randomly mention it to someone who says it's not supposed to do that. Even better when you have a mild random allergy like that, and then one day when you're 33, random factors combine and ta-da! You're part of the EpiPen club, because that random mild allergy sent you into a very confused bout of anaphylaxis that you don't realize is anaphylaxis until your doctor doesn't laugh along with you when you're relating the story to them and instead gives you a look trademark until you shut up before telling you that you're lucky to have survived and please go to the ER next time before prescribing you an EpiPen and handing you a paper with the descriptions of anaphylaxis and when to call 911 and use your EPI. Please don't ask me how I know. I visited Rome with my mom as I was 6 or 7. We were staying in a line to go to the toilet in Colosseum, and she suddenly pointed to a crack in the wall and said that there is something there. I checked it out, and it was a Roman coin. Of course, I thought that it was real and kept it and told everyone I knew about it. I realized that my mom just staged it all only 10 years later. Still amazing memories, though. My great-great-aunt Flossie had an old magnolia tree in her yard, with a knot in the trunk that was just big enough for me to stick my hand in. My grandma would take me out to play in the yard, and every time we'd check to see if there was anything in our treasure chest. There would always be something, maybe a cool rock or a feather, or a coin if I was lucky. It wasn't until decades later that I thought about our treasure chest and realized that my grandma had been hiding things for me to find. I'm learning more than I'd like to admit in this thread. That stripper poles spin. I always wondered how they spun so fast without burning their skin. Poles can be on spin mode, which means they spin on their own axis, or they can be on static mode, which means they don't spin. Most good quality poles can be switched back and forth from spin mode to static mode with an Allen key or by flipping a switch. Dancing on spin mode and static mode both have their own pros and cons. Source: I'm a pole dancer. This is an embarrassing one. I grew up with a lisp and spoke pretty much just like Neil Goldman from Family Guy. Never went to speech therapy, nor has anyone tried to help correct me. That's just how I spoke. I was self-conscious about it. Classmates jabbed a bit, but nothing too serious. It wasn't until after high school at 19 that I was just randomly making silly sound effects with my mouth. Is when I placed my tongue in a certain position and noticed, hey, this sounds like a normal way to talk. Is this where my tongue was supposed to be this whole time when I spoke those words? From that moment forward, I spoke normal. It was a huge revelation for me, but I also felt so idiotic. Edit to say it wasn't a lisp. I should have wrote speech impediment instead. This just made me realize something about myself. I had a speech problem when I was really young, and a speech therapist fixed me super fast. Up until reading this now, I always assumed that it was cause either very young me had a crush or was eager to impress the first adult who was nice to me, so I worked hard or something like that. Never occurred to me I was speaking wrong and my parents were too shit to teach me right. Also explains why my siblings didn't have the same issue, because I taught them to speak. Though it's still just a theory, but thanks for this giving me something to think about. I was 42 when I had an epiphany about water towers, sky tanks. They're not for storing water for an emergency, they're for storing water for water pressure. I figured it out when I wondered why the water never went off when all other utilities went out during storms. Felt pretty stupid. As one commenter said when I posted this before, they're not so towns can put their names on them as if to say, fuck you, look how much water we've got. Back in the day, some guys were flying around counting geese and ducks for a migration study. Engrossed in their task, they got lost in the days before GPS, so they buzzed a small town's water tower to read the name, then got out their map. I'm learning so many things today. Eminem, Marshall Mathers. Banks have height measurements at doors in case they get robbed and can tell how tall the robber is. Didn't know that's what it was for until recently. I didn't know that pickles are cucumbers. I'm a history buff, have a master's, and when my GF said we should make our own pickles, I said it's a little late in the summer to grow pickles. I'll never live that one down, but her reaction was priceless and she's marriage material. Edit, everything is fine. I understand pickled veggies now. Embarrassing now that I think about it, but that bears actually wake up to eat when they hibernate, instead of sleeping for months straight. Hibernation is not actually sleep. In fact, one of the first things bears do when coming out of hibernation is catch up on their missed sleep. In addition to there being a species called opossum, there is a separate family of species called possum. My dad spent a lot of time in the office, even during the weekends. He also went on vacation without my mom because someone had to watch over the dogs. When my mom left, he came clean about his double life, and I was shocked. My brother and sister just looked at me with that "ho come on dude" look. I'm the eldest, and I genuinely believed he loved his job and going solo on trips. It took me till I was 18 to realize that when people said they were procrastinating because of laziness, they meant that they could have done it at any time but just don't feel like. And not that they were constantly stressing about having to do that thing, knowing you have to do it, but your body physically not letting you despite you screaming at your body and brain to just fucking move and do the work. ADHD is hell, and that was after having had the diagnosis for 8 years. Oh, I recently realized something that might be obvious to others, but it just clicked for me. When you say yes to one thing, you're automatically saying no to something else. For example, if you agree to help someone with their project, you're sacrificing your own time that could be spent on your tasks or just relaxing. It sounds obvious, but in the moment when someone asks you to do something, you don't always immediately consider what you're giving up in return. In short, saying yes to one thing is always saying no to another. It seems simple, but when you truly grasp it, you start looking at your decisions differently. You discovered opportunity cost. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe and comment about what things you realized in adult age that is something obvious for everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.